Welcome on the couch after round 12. Plenty of football, and boys, our first ever exclusive is going to drop tonight, and it involves the GWS veteran Callan Ward. We're going to hear exactly what happened inside that three-quarter time huddle that inspired a Giants victory. The boys are raring to go. We're going to kick off with the AFL ladder tonight and see how it sits in the competition after round 12. 1 week of the bye weeks down, and the Pies are on top, boys. And they are a pretty sight on top at the moment, Bucks, aren't they?
Yeah, they've been really strong, and obviously their footy right now is the best football. It's they'd like it to be September because there's still a lot of time between now and then. Yeah. But I think there's some clubs that are up there. Geelong, I rate them. Obviously they beat Collingwood only 3 or 4 weeks ago. Adelaide are putting together a fair case for what their footy looks like. Brisbane are the incumbents.
Starting to pack up the ladder a bit, isn't it?
It is. Well, even Freo have been able to sort of push their way up there, and they've got a pretty good run the next sort of month that they could frank that. And even the Dogs.
Yeah,
the Dogs have played some great footy, and they're outside at the moment after their bye.
Look at the percentage, 126.5. So I think if you watched the footy all year and didn't look at the ladder, you would have thought they were in the top 8. So interesting, they sit outside with one part of their game that's pretty healthy.
Well, still, it's starting to separate, though.
It is starting to separate, and we always like to look to a different metric when we come to who's potentially going to challenge in September, and that is the Premiership Window. We last viewed it in round 7, boys, so let's have a bit of a look at where it's sat at round 7, because at this point in time, the Suns were obviously up there. Collingwood not in the Premiership Window. Any other sides that you thought might have been in at round 7, Geordie?
I think, who would I say? Brisbane. Brisbane were probably the one. And Chris Fagan was on before, so this is the best start of the season they've had. But Brisbane, for me, was probably the surprise.
All right, let's fast forward through to round 12 where we sit now. And, Bucks, you've requested the window and some change has happened, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, so the Cats have dropped down. So they've dropped under the line. They were in the window and they've dropped down 3 spots. So where they're sitting sort of right next to where the Dogs are, actually. And the Lions have improved their defence and gone above the line, but they've just dropped their offence a little bit, which has pushed them to the left outside the window. But I'd much prefer to have that profile where you've got your defence in a top 6, having to ramp up your offence. But the balance of those two is really important, which is why that has always stood the test of time.
The one in the window for me, Gold Coast.
Gold Coast?
Yeah, you look at them, so they'll be tested. So is their form real, or have they had a good run? Now, they've had a lot of away games, so they have a good run of home games, but this will test them. Geelong away, GWS away, Melbourne home, Essendon away, and Collingwood at home on a huge Friday night in 5 weeks' time. So we'll know the Gold Coast Suns whether they've absolutely deserve to be in the window in 5 weeks' time.
What's caught your eye, Geordie?
Oh, for me, it's the Dogs, and I think the gap we see there, they're the number 1 offensive side in the competition, but 10th defensively. So that needs a big improvement to bring up that. And I think across the board, where we've seen incremental increases in either offence or defence, the other part of the game has suffered as well. So a two-spot increase in offence, a 2-spot decrease in defence. So it's hard to get the balance right. Collingwood have probably got the balance right at the moment, but certainly the Dogs have got a fair bit of improvement on the defensive end.
Yeah, if mine's the Crows, I think defensively the number 1 team in the competition over the last 6 weeks defensively. And we've known that the Crows have had their offensive power for a long time. I think they've scored 7 times over 100 points and had an absolute annihilation of Sydney on the weekend. But their defence is the thing that they are rising up into the Premiership Window, and a side that is stuck in the Premiership Window, and many think are the favourites for the Premiership this year, is the Collingwood Football Club. In an absolute blistering performance on the weekend, was this the best performance we've seen of 2025, Geordie?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we spoke about it post-game, and we said it was a game that you stand up and take notice if you hadn't already. So they just controlled the game. When you look at it, there was no way which Hawthorn could either defend or move the ball. They just set themselves up so well. So you look at that, the interceptor score for and against is a huge marker of how well you are going as a system, both offensively and defensively.